Welcome back to another episode of Flyer Nation. I'm Tony DeNardis. Today I am joined by the head coach of the men's soccer team, Evan Fiffles, who has been the coach of the program for over 30 years. And later I will be joined by junior defender Nicky Rogalski to talk about his experience in the program. But Coach, thanks for taking some time to chat today.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So you've had a long career here at Lewis. You've held this role since 1992.
Yeah.
But before that you coached the women's team for a couple years in 89 and 90. And then went and coached high school for a year.
Right.
But Lewis obviously seems to be a major part of your life. What's kept you here all this time?
Well, you know, growing up, I always knew I wanted to go ahead and teach and coach. And then when I did my master's, it just being around in that environment where it's a different just kind of mentality compared to high school, you know, student athlete. So if I had an opportunity to go ahead and coach in the college level, and I'm a Chicago guy, grew up, born here, and if I could go ahead and make a living as a full-time coach in the Chicagoland area, that was my dream job. So it's been my dream job, you know, and I wouldn't even classify it as a job, you know. It's just, I have a passion for it since I was a teenager.
And you made the switch, right? Because when you started here, you were the coach of the women's team, and when you came back, you became the coach of the men's team. Now, was there an opportunity that it became open, or what kind of altered that?
So I had done both. So after I graduated my master's, I came on back to Chicagoland area, and I coached boys high school, and then at Moraine Valley, junior college guys. And then I started the program, girls program at high school at Carl Sandburg High School. So I was, through my first 5 to 6 years, I was doing both the boys and the girls. So it just wasn't, again, like you said, opportunity is the key. When I had an opportunity to coach at the college level, even though I had the guy Moraine, the boys at Moraine, it was obviously a two-year school, so an opportunity to get my foot in the door in a 4-year university. So I took that opportunity. And I had 4 years of coaching with the girls at high school. So again, it was that opportunity that I jumped on it with coaching the girls, and then for the 2 years, and then the guys coach left here. So again, I had the door open to get my foot in there, and the women's job was part-time.
Okay.
Yeah, and the men's job was full-time, so it was a big difference.
So you mentioned opportunity, and it was definitely a great decision, right? You've been here now for over 30 years in this role, and a lot of accolades to your name, most victories in school history, over 360 of them. You've guided the Flyers to 3 NCAA national semifinals, and then Coach of the Year last year. I know you've won that a bunch of other times. How do you maintain that success for such a long time?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously every coach will say, you know, you're as good as your players, and that's obviously the truth right there. You have to have good players. You have to bring in players who have the same kind of goals and passion that you do. Otherwise, I think it's difficult. If they don't want to come in, they don't want to be successful in the classroom, and they don't want to be successful in their vocation and put time into it, and they don't want to become a better soccer player and reach their potential, then I think it's always it's more difficult, you know, to go ahead and manage that. Especially with us, with the first team and reserve team, we have 45 guys in the program. So even if you have a few guys that are just not locked in and just bought in what you're doing, I think it makes it more difficult. And I think over the years and the decades, we just have the young men who, again, just want to be the best they can be in the classroom and then, again, on the field. And that helps immensely.
And I'm glad you brought that up, too, because you can have the best players and the best coaches, but that doesn't mean you're always going to gel well together. You got to be on the same page, and it seems like that's what you've built here.
Yeah, you know, even in the last couple of years, the success that we've had, and then 2023, when, like you said, we went to the Final Four, we probably weren't the best, the most talented team, but it was a team that played for each other, and they played hard for each other, and the dynamics and the chemistry was just, it was at a very high level right there. And it's just games that, again, that when you're in a single elimination tournament right there and you win those games right there, you got to have guys playing for each other. It's just, you can't have guys that just have the egos and worrying about themselves. You're just not going to get the results in those big games.
And you've been doing this a long time. I mean, is it easier to tell now those guys that are going to be good for your culture and that can build that team chemistry when you're looking to bring new players here?
You know, everything is the sense of a gamble. I mean, you have to go ahead. The key to college, anybody who wants to get into college coaching, you have to want to recruit. you have to want to go ahead and go through the process and evaluate players, just not as a player on the field, but off the field also. So you could only just, there's no crystal ball because you don't know how really that young man comes in. You could see him, as early as sophomore or junior in high school. And even those who've committed maybe a year early, you don't know what's going to happen in those 12 months. And so all you can do is just do the best job that you can in the sense of, talking to club coaches, high school coaches, players that are around them, even parents that are on the team at that point, and get an idea of what you're bringing in to the program and to the university also, because we want them to represent their family well, but also the program and the university. So that's important. So there's some guys that could be very talented in the beginning or through the process, but as soon as we bring them in or we talk to them, we know that they just might not be a good fit for us.
In soccer, it's such a global sport, and you have players from Austria, England, Ghana, and I think a few other countries too. But when you are recruiting those players internationally, it's got to be a little bit different, right? Because you can't go out and watch their games. You could fly out there, but it's not as easy as it is of players that are a lot closer.
Right. So we've recruited internationals since my first year here, and every year we've had internationals. And there's been times when we've gone over to showcases and we've actually hands-on and saw them live. But now with just the level of videos and players able to put their whole kind of highlight together and full game together, it's a lot easier now to go ahead and basically you can sit there when you watch a game. It's like you're sitting in the stands and watching them. So it is a different process. We don't really look into internationals until December. Our mentality is we want to try to go ahead and be have a core of our group of our program, our players from the Chicagoland area. We would like to be successful as much as possible with Chicagoland guys. But then if we don't find the players to fit what we need, a certain need, then we'll look at starting in December. So we have a big core of coming in. We'll have probably about 16 players, but we'll have about 7, 8 internationals that have already signed with us. So it's we lost a lot, but I think we have a good core coming in also.
Now, when you're recruiting these guys, I know at least over here in the States, a lot of these guys are playing on clubs, right, just out of high school. So for players that maybe are wanting to get noticed, is it the club teams that you're going and watching tape or just watching these guys play, or is it the high school teams, or both?
Yes, it's a combination where we might first see them in a high school setting, but then we want to go ahead and follow up and watch them after the high school season's over and watch them in the club, because we want to go ahead and watch them and evaluate them at the highest level possible. So if they're playing in certain clubs, there's going to be a higher level than the high school. So we'll make some decisions off of just high school kids, and their play at that level, but pretty much it's going to go ahead and carry through the combination of both high school and club.
Now, when it comes to transfers, because the transfer portal, at least in other sports, basketball and football, it's kind of taking over. Is that the same in soccer? How does that work?
Yeah, I think it is. It's taken over all the sports, but I think it's up to the coach to determine what kind of the culture and kind of the foundation of their program to be. So we spend some time on the portal, but we haven't had a lot of success in the portal.
Okay.
There's over 1,000 players, soccer players in the portal. But what we found out over the years since they've kind of begun is the players who are going to be impact players and the ones that would help us out have little interest. They want to stay at Division I, and they want to go ahead and just kind of go possibly to another conference or program where maybe they don't have as much depth in a certain position, and they know they're going to go ahead and play there. And then the other half that are on the portal, not going to help us. We already have 40 players like them already, and they're leaving because basically they're not good enough at that level at that point. So we still spend time with it and we follow up. We just haven't had a lot of success in bringing those players in. So a lot of this year we have 2 transfers, and then we'll have probably 13, 14 freshmen, true freshmen. So we'll be pretty young in the fall.
So you have a lot of guys in there, a lot of your team that, stays here throughout their college career.
Yeah, we'll have we have 13 seniors this year that graduated.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, that's a good core of background, core of players.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more with Coach Evan Fiffles right here on Flyer Nation.
It is a new day for jobs and careers, and the skills needed to compete are rapidly changing. This is why more students are choosing Lewis University. Lewis prepares you for emerging opportunities in some of the most highly sought after fields. Higher education is the most crucial investment you can make in your future. Lewis provides you with a lasting education that will launch you toward success today and strong growing careers of tomorrow. Begin an education that will pay dividends for a lifetime. Learn more at lewisu.edu.
For over 50 years, WLRA has been on air showcasing countless students. As the first all-digital college radio station, Lewis University students are given access to industry-leading equipment. Equipment that commercial stations utilize, equipment that creates, and equipment that brings radio to life.
I like WLRA because it gives me the opportunity to get experience with news broadcasting and working with radio.
Stop by De La Salle 210 or at WLRA Radio to get started on your radio career.
Into back to the middle, finds Archer's DeNardis. Out to Perez. One touch, two touch, DeNardis to the goal, into the right! One touch, two touch, and that's all you need for Archer's DeNardis to put one in.
Welcome back to Flyer Nation. Still joined with Coach Evan Fiffles. Earlier you mentioned something about a reserve team, and you said 45 players on your team. So what is that reserve team? How does that work?
Okay, so it started about, I want to say it's been in existence maybe about 5 years.
Okay.
So basically kind of how it came about was I went to the athletic director and I said, hey, how can we get some more resources? Budget money, scholarship monies. And so basically it was just go ahead and increase from 25 to 45. So we brought in the 20 extra players at that point, and then we had more resources in the program. And so we recruit now. Our recruiting has changed so much because now we recruit pretty much against every college. We'll recruit against St. Francis, Benedictine, Aurora for reserve players. So it's basically players who still want to come to Lewis. They still want to become part of a program, that camaraderie of a team, and still play, and they're not at the level possibly at that first team, but maybe they have the aspirations, or maybe they're borderline. And so it gives them that opportunity to go ahead and come on in, and it's totally separate training, the first team and the reserve team, but it gives them, we've had players, every year we've had players start in the reserve team that ended up on the first team. And we've had some that started by the end of the year. So it just gives an opportunity to maybe a player that through the evaluation and through recruiting, we just maybe didn't rate as high. And maybe they just had a bad day or the times that we saw them, and now they're more comfortable and they're in a setting, and now they kind of develop as a player more. So it gives them an opportunity to go ahead and continue their dream. Maybe as come on first team or even become a starter.
Are they playing other reserve teams, or are they going up against the top talent on other universities?
No, they're playing other reserve teams, and then they'll play like MLS Next club teams.
Okay.
So kids who don't play high school who play on the MLS Next, so they'll bring teams on over, and they'll get games against them also.
Now your season usually begins around the 1st of September, give or take a week, and runs through November. But we're in April right now. What is the off season looking like? What is your team doing at this point in time?
As soon as they came back, the first Tuesday in second semester, we started up. So for the first 8 weeks through NCAA rules, we're only allowed 8 hours a week. And we have to give them 2 days off. So we go Monday through Thursday, 2 hours a day. And we do that up until spring break. So when they came back last week from spring break, then we get able to move up to 15 hours. Okay. So we go Monday through Thursday, 2 hours a day, but then we're allowed one game every weekend. So we had our first game last night. We'll have one this Saturday, and we'll have a game every week up until a week before finals.
That's what I was going to ask you too. So the seniors that completed their senior year in the fall, they're not a part of this anymore?
I don't know. Yeah, there's some schools that allow them to go ahead and play. They like that competition, but I want my team that's going to be in the fall. And so we want to develop those kind of players, even like this year, even though we've lost so many guys, and we're only having about 18 field players right now. it's better to see and develop those players and make them better.
So you're definitely taking advantage of this time right now, because when you get back in the fall, there's not much time until the season gets underway. So players go home for the summer, and then how soon do you get them back to get ready?
Yeah, so they'll be gone for 3 months on their own. Some will decide to play club, and some will go back to their country if they're internationals. And then they'll come in, they'll move in on the 17th, and we'll have 2.5 weeks before our first regular season game.
Okay.
So we have 3 friendlies, 3 scrimmages during that time, but it's not a lot of time before that first game. If you figure 15, 16 days is what we'll have before that first game.
And does it vary based on the position somebody plays or what year they are and what they do or need to focus on when they get back to get ready?
Yeah, they need to be fit. You know, I tell my guys all the time, if you're not fit and you can't get up and down the field, then maybe
There's
you
a
should
problem.
have, played another sport, whatever it may be at that point. So yeah, we can't use that preseason to get in shape. Just because if you try to go ahead and do it and have conditioning and just overload the body, injuries, pull muscles, hammies, things will come into play. So if they're not in shape, that's their fault at that point. It doesn't give them the best opportunity to go ahead and get on the field and get playing time and start.
And I'm sure you're advising them stuff to do once they do go home for the summer, because you can't really control what they do. That's
Right.
out of your hands.
Yeah.
You just got to hope when they get back, like you said, they're ready.
Yeah, and it is. It's basically, you can only advise, and you can only get, even the new guys coming in, you could give them, hey, we're going to do this fitness test, and these are the levels that you need to be at. But it's going to be up to them because, there's nobody, like you said, there's nobody watching over them right there. So it's either, they have the discipline, and maybe your captains and your seniors are, through group chats or, staying on top of the guys at that point and make sure they're doing stuff. All you could do is just, hey, this is what you need to do, and you'll find out that first couple of days if they did it or not.
So let's fast forward to the season then. Typical week in terms of film, preparation, how does that look?
So we have to give them, per NCAA rules, we have to give them a day off. So the first team's day off is Monday. And then Tuesday, we are allowed 4 hours max, and we'll max out on Tuesday. So Tuesday morning, we'll do our film analysis from Sunday's game.
Okay.
And then we'll do our only strength session on Tuesday morning right after the films. And then we'll go have a field session in the afternoon. So that's probably going to be our most intense session also, because it's the furthest day away from our next game. And then Wednesday, we'll just go in the afternoon, we'll dial it down, and we start, that's kind of, we've hit our peak on Tuesday, and now on Wednesday, we'll start, we'll implement who we're going to play and what our kind of our game plan is against them. Tuesday's everything about us and what we need to do better. Wednesday, we incorporate the other team. Thursday, we're either traveling or it's a very light session of restarts because it's the day before game. And our league is every Friday and Sunday we're playing a game. So Friday we play, Saturday recovery, Sunday game, and then that same cycle for the entire fall.
Okay, so you pretty much don't have to worry about changing up that routine at all because you know when you're playing.
Yeah, we have the biggest league in the country with 15 teams, so it's pretty regimented. Our schedule, we already have our schedule, for 2026 already. So yeah, that schedule is going to pretty much doesn't change.
Well, the last couple of years, you've reached the NCAA tournament. Last year, you lost in the first round. A couple of years ago, got to the Final Four. And I've talked to different coaches here at Lewis, and I ask them, what's the goal going into next season? And a lot of them say, win a conference title. But for you guys, I think the goal's a lot higher than that because you've been able to get into the NCAA tournament, and you've gotten far.
Yeah. Our goal is to win championships. So I recruit, and the culture is to bring in guys that want to win championships. So there's 4 championships every year. Regular season championship, the tournament championship, the regional championship to go to the Final Four, and then the national championship. So that's what our goal is you're going to be here for 4 years. How many of those 16 championships can you go ahead and win? And that's kind of our, even with this group, like we said, we've lost 7 starters and is 13 seniors, but our goal is to challenge and win championships, and that's always kind of what our expectations are at that point, and that's what we're striving to do.
What do you need to do to get to the national championship? What's something maybe that needs to be improved from last season or something you've seen over the course of the last couple of years?
I think every year is a little bit different This past year, winning the regular season and then the tournament, sometimes that's kind of hurts you because again, it's very difficult to win both of those in the same year. And when we did it, we talked about that week about, not dropping off and having, the killer instinct again, because it then becomes still a single elimination. In nationals this year, it was just not a good matchup for us. We were a very possession-oriented team this past fall, very technical team, and one of our downfalls this past fall was just matching up on restarts, height, and somebody had an opponent would have a corner kick or a dead ball situation. We just didn't match up height-wise. So that's something that we had to address because my hands were tied as a coach at that point when you're setting up on a corner and defending a corner and they have, 4 6'2" guys and I have 2 6'2" and 2 5'10" guys. And it's just, again, you could go ahead and coach certain things and try to go ahead and get an advantage, but at the same time, in those scenarios, you have to have a better matchup. And so that's what we concentrated with the players that we brought in. I want to say that we brought in 8 or 9 players over 6 foot. So we're not, my hands are tied without, not able to match up on those situations.
Now, for all the soccer players out there that are considering coming to Lewis or just in general want to play at the collegiate level, what advice would you give them moving forward? And then if they do want to come to Lewis, why should they consider this program?
Yeah, I think if you want to play college, and especially here at Lewis, you have to play at the highest level before coming here. So you have to go ahead and seek out if it's club, individual training. You have to go ahead and play at the highest level. And I think it's important to watch us play. So if you're not able to come on campus and watch us live, you could still watch all our games are streamed, so you could go back and watch and have an understanding of the level. Because I think that's the most difficult sometimes for players in high school. They really don't know the level. And our level is very comparable to a lot of Division I programs. So you have to go ahead and have that kind of background coming on in. And when you have players who've had that background, they've played at strong clubs, they have a tendency to, when a hurdle comes into their life or they sit there and adversity comes into their playing or even off the field, they adjust better because they've been at a high level and they understand, hey, I've been through this before. I wasn't a starter, but I had to work to go ahead and get to this position. That's kind of how it is here, right here. You have to kind of work. They got to, work on both feet. You got to be a 2-footed player. You got to be fit. You got to want to be the best that you can at that point. And you have to have that. You have to have that passion and aspiration to become the best they could be, because that's what we want, and that's the only way we're going to become successful when they're challenging their goals and want to be successful.
And these players, they can prepare and do everything possible to get themselves ready, but you truly don't know what you're getting into until you actually get on the field and start playing some of these teams.
I think it's important. If you talk to any of the players who've been in our program or even those that we recruited, I think it's very important to be very transparent to recruits. There's some coaches that just tell recruits what they want to hear. I'm going to tell them what reality is. So when they come on in, they're not here 3-4 weeks into the season and sitting there and say, hey, coach, you told me this. I want them to sit there and say, yeah, this is exactly what Coach Fiffles said at that point. And it's going to be tough and it's going to be demanding. And I want to be in that situation because I want to be the best I could be and I want to be challenged right there. So it's important that they come in, they understand that environment that they're going to be thrown into.
And I want to ask you a question away from the recruits too. You had a turf field, Lewis Stadium, that you play on. It was grass when you started here back in 1992. How do you feel the game has changed, or does it affect how the game is played now that you're on turf compared to real grass?
Yeah, it is a different game. It is a different game. It's a faster game. So we still have, I think, 3 programs in our league that play on grass. So we'll go back and forth, you know, and, that week before that we're going to play on the grass right there, because it is a different game. It's a slower game on the grass at that point. So your first touch has to be key, maybe playing the feet a little bit sharper. Speed can come into play just because of the surface right there, but speed comes into play even on grass at that point. But it is just, I think it's a cleaner game, just because you don't have the divots and you don't have, in some instances, longer grass to go ahead and slow up that game.
And do you notice at all, does it kind of affect your team in a negative way when you go and play on a grass field because they're not used to it? Do you see any of that?
I don't, only because we have that opportunity on the grass and we're able to go ahead and get those sessions in on the grass. And so hopefully we're prepared as well as we can be. Having that, if we just had turfs, I think it would be a different situation than if we didn't train at all on a grass and then go into a grass game. So obviously we have that luxury of having both here, so we could go ahead and have those training sessions on the grass that prepare for that game.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today, and I'm hoping that there's another long tournament run for your team next season.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. When we come back on Flyer Nation, I will be joined by junior defender Nicky Rogalski. Stay tuned.
The Race Strong Foundation was created about 4 years ago. It came after, as a couple, we had our first child. She was born at 24 weeks. She weighed 1 pound, 12 ounces. Then she proceeded to spend another 4 months in the NICU. That was the time that she should have been growing in the womb. During the 4 months, you know, we visited her daily and we got to sit down with the doctors and the nurses, and the amount of medical knowledge and what they can do to make sure that your child survives is amazing. And just the experience, it was nothing we could have ever been prepared for. So emotionally, we became very tied to the micro-preemie world. And that was when we decided to create a foundation with the goal of trying to give thanks back to the NICUs, the nurses, and then also provide any sort of emotional or financial help to other families that might experience what we went through.
We've had the opportunity to host over 40 events, celebrating micro-preemies, fundraising, and bringing awareness to micro-preemies and their families. When you get a chance, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, or our website at raystrong.org. Donate, and thanks again for all the support.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Flyer Nation. I'm now joined by junior defender Nicky Rogalski. Nicky, thanks for taking some time to talk today.
Good to be here.
So when did this love of soccer start for you?
I would say around age of 6, I was thrown into soccer right away. No other sports, honestly. I played basketball here and there, but it was soccer since day one, pretty much.
And then growing up playing soccer, because you're a defender now, has that always been the case? Did you play every position at one time?
It was always defender for me.
Was it?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I honestly don't think I had the skill level to score goals, so I guess I was just working my best to defend and keep no goals.
And when does that usually stick? Like, 'cause I'm assuming a lot of your teammates throughout the years would change positions, right, trying to figure out what best suits them. But when did that stick for you? You said always, but when did you really know, okay, I'm a defender now?
I would say around high school.
Okay.
Because I always liked, obviously you want to score goals. That's the main objective in soccer. But definitely in high school I realized that I just have to sit back, defend, and I guess do the dirty work.
And you went to Maine South, so you're somewhat local here to Lewis. Did that play a role in why you chose to come here?
Yeah, it did. My family's close by. They could come to my games. I love having support, obviously, so that's great to have.
Is that one of the better parts of playing here?
Oh yeah, for sure. Parents come to basically every game, so every home game at least, so it's great.
Now, last year you were 2 years ago you were part of the Final Four team. You were still an NCAA tournament team last year. What's that environment like?
It's amazing, honestly. Just being able to travel, even during school. School could get hard for sure, but just being with your guys 24/7, dinner, lunch, breakfast, literally all of it. Just you just build relationships, and it's amazing to see. And I think that really impacts how we play on the field.
And is it easy to balance a lot of that stuff, you know, classroom and then plus the field, like you said?
I would say so. It is, yeah. It's just being, I guess, disciplined, just knowing you got to do your work and then focus on soccer. So I think getting your schoolwork done before soccer stuff, it's a key.
And you've done your work, right? You were named All-GLVC first team at the end of this past season, along with some other recognitions. What's led to the success for you?
I would say first and foremost, probably God. He allows me to just like know that there's something bigger than me. And then obviously I would say my teammates and my coach, they just allow me to like be who I am, and just they help me. The environment I'm in, they make me better, I make them better, and I think that's why we've kind of had a winning program ever since I got here and before I got here. But
your coach, Evan Fiffles, he's been here a long time, since 1992, the head coach of your program. What's he like on and off the field? Because obviously he's had a lot of success here.
Yeah. I'll start with off the field. Off the field, very funny. I think he really, like, he builds a relationship with us off the field, which is good, and obviously that translates onto the field. And I would say on the field, very truthful, like, which is, I think every player likes that, because if you do need to work on stuff, he'll tell you up front, and I think that's the one thing you want as a player, just knowing what you can work on, what you could be better at, and yeah.
You know, I want to bring something up too, and I want to kind of get your reaction to it. Like I said before, you made the All-GLVC first team. You're a defender, though, and if a lot of people aren't too familiar with soccer, there's not a lot of scoring that goes on with people that play your position, right? So I think a lot of people would see you get to the first team, but how is that possible where you didn't even score a goal the entire season? And I think there's so many other responsibilities than just putting the ball in the net.
Yeah. I'm honestly not entirely sure, but I would just say my teammates do help a lot, honestly, because I think they do their jobs, and if they do their jobs, it makes my job easier. So just them collectively doing their part, and that just allows me to kind of, I don't know, I guess just talk it out with them. And once I talk with them on the field, they do their job, and then.
Well, and like you say, I mean, there's a lot of talent on this team too, so it definitely makes life a little bit easier for you.
For sure.
Now, we talked about your accomplishments a little bit. What other, if there is any, what challenges have you faced in your 3 years here?
I would say injury. My whole freshman year, I was pretty much hurt. I came in with an injury over the summer, and then the spring again, I got hurt, which was, you know, it's not really great as an athlete. You don't want to be hurt. And I think getting through that, and then, yeah, that's it.
And you're fully healthy now.
Yeah.
Right? You've been here a few years. You're getting ready for your senior season. What are you looking forward to? Obviously, I would think it would be the NCAA tournament, but a longer run maybe this time?
Yeah, I would just say winning. We won conference this year. We won the regular season, and we made a run my sophomore year. So I think just winning in general, that's what Lewis and Coach have implemented. So I think winning all three trophies this year would be amazing.
Now, a final thing, when we think of advice, you're local here, I'm assuming you came on a visit. When high schoolers and maybe even transfers are coming here to Lewis to talk with coaches, what advice would you give them to those that want to play on the next level and succeed?
I would say just knowing the work you put in, it equals results. So if you know you're putting in work, then results will come to you. So I think just keep like going with that, and then you'll eventually make it.
And like you say, you got to be patient, right? You were injured. That sometimes messes with a lot of people mentally, right? But you just got to stick through it.
Yeah, patience, very key.
Patience. Well, thanks, Nicky. I appreciate you talking with me
Thank
today.
you.
I want to also thank Coach Evan Fiffles again and the men's soccer program. So that'll wrap things up for this episode of Flyer Nation. You can catch future episodes right here on the Lewis University Television Network YouTube channel.